Hi, my name is Ashley. I am the daughter of an addict, and I'm going to share my story with you. My mom is Tracy, and she's a very beautiful woman. She has an amazing heart. She really is an inspiration to me and always has been since I was little. However, during her bouts of addiction, that's when she wasn't present. But when she was present, she was the top of the line mom, She's always been in and out of my life since I was super little, and we were always raised around family because at that time, I didn't know, she couldn't really hold down a lot of jobs, or she couldn't keep it steady because then she'd disappear due to her addiction. And so then we'd live with my grandma or we'd live with aunts and uncles, and so I lived all over the place. So I've lived in California, Arizona, I was born in Arizona, and then here. And just kind of all over the place, which was nice for culture speaking, so I got a taste of it. But I don't remember a ton about my childhood when I was super little, only because I think maybe your mind blocks out some of the bad stuff. But I do know certain stories from hearing my mom's story, which is amazing and both kind of heartbreaking at the same time to understand what struggles she actually went through. But it's always fun to hear your mom's story, even if they are normies. It's always nice to hear their stories. But when I was younger, my mom met a man, and his name is Steven, and he is my dad even though he didn't have to be my dad. So I met him when I was 3, 4-ish, and my mom was pregnant with my little brother, and we lived in Salt Lake off of Redwood Road. He became my dad. He became my daddy. He was just the best man ever. And my mom ended up leaving him, and then we moved to California. And I didn't know that my dad wasn't my dad until I lived in California with a new stepsister who I thought we were the best of friends, right? But she probably didn't appreciate that her dad moved 2 other children into the house. So she threw it in my face one day, and I called my dad crying and sobbing and talked to my mom, and he'll still be your dad, he's still your dad, whatever. And then my brother's 3.5 years younger than I am, so we didn't tell him at that time because he would have been 5. He wouldn't have really understood at that point. So life as I knew it, it was living with family all over the place, but I didn't really understand at that point in time what drugs were. So probably around the age of 10, probably around the age of 10, we ended up, how do I want to phrase that? So my mom and her current husband at the time, they split. And it wasn't pretty. We lived in Temecula, California at this time. We moved from Rancho Cucamonga down to Temecula and lived in an apartment complex, just a 2-bedroom apartment. So my brother and I had to share a room, which is fine. But we would drive around places sometimes, and my mom would hand me a pen and paper and start telling me to write down license plate numbers because she kept telling us that people were following us and that Jim was following us and that I needed to keep track and keep a lookout no matter where we went. And at first I was okay, what's going on? Okay, Mom, okay. And there was one time that he did actually show up, and it was terrifying because then it made me think that all of these other times when all of these other people are following us, maybe my mom isn't crazy. Maybe there are horrible people after us, and I don't know, because he ended up attacking her essentially, and she yelled at me to lock the doors before I could really realize what was happening at that age. I didn't we just shut the doors, and he ended up getting her by the throat and kind of attacked her in front of my brother and I, and it was pretty horrifying. So from that point on, if my mom needed me to write down a license plate number, I absolutely was going to write down a license plate number, because who the heck knows who's going to come after us. Then we lived in, we still lived in Temecula in that apartment, and I think that's kind of when I more or less stepped up as the mother figure to my brother, because my mom couldn't afford rent, and she had a woman live with us, and she smoked pot all the time. So she actually took the place of mine and my brother's room, and we moved in to my mom's room in a 2-bedroom apartment. So all 3 of us were living in there. And then I went to school every day smelling like pot, and as like a young kid at that age, and I was very depressed. I like wore a hoodie every single day in the summertime in California, because just super depressed. But so there were a lot of times during that particular time when my mom wasn't fully present, where we wouldn't have food in the house, where we'd have to like scrounge change up, and like back in the day, because I'm so old, but back in the day, the lunch meat used to come in like these little packages where you could get like 5 of them in a package for like 25 cents. And so I would make my brother and I food by doing like the lunch meat and the Kraft cheese squares and rolling it up, and like that would be our meal. And there were a few instances like that. There was one instance, I mean, my mom's always been super protective, right? So when she was there, it was great. One of my favorite memories that I have as a child, like growing up, was one of my best friends in California. Her name was also Ashley. And my mom went and picked her up from Rancho Cucamonga so she could come and stay with me. And we ended up playing hide and go seek in the dark, but it's California in the summertime, and you don't have a lot of shade. So she blindfolded us and we played hide and go seek, and it was seriously so fun. So when my mom was present, great mom, hands down. But when she wasn't, it was kind of hard. But she would always go to bat for us. So we lived in an apartment complex where the washer and dryer were in a different area, and we took our clothes to be washed, and then we went back home or whatever. But she went to switch back, and all of our laundry was gone. It was completely missing. Someone in the apartment complex had stolen it. And I saw the little girl who was wearing one of my favorite rainbow outfits. It was like a pair of shorts that had like a yellow tank top and like a rainbow edging on the shorts and on the shirt. Funny that I remember that. But I remember seeing her in it, and I was like, Mom, she's wearing my clothes. And so my mom like pounded on the woman's door and was like, give us our clothes back, and like barged in there. And we got all of our stuff back, Mom's pretty badass that way. Am I allowed to swear? Okay. Okay. So yeah, she always had our back. And there was a particular time though when she let Jim come back into her life for a minute, and it was Mother's Day. And I remember walking to the grocery store, and my brother and I got her stuff for Mother's Day so we can make her a Mother's Day breakfast. And when you're in elementary school, you make those certain crafts for Mother's Day at school. And so we did that same thing. And I was like so proud. Know how to make an egg. I don't know how to make an egg, but figured it out, made eggs and toast, and kept knocking on her door to get her to come out of the bedroom, and she wouldn't come out of the bedroom. And then it was time kept going by and hours went by, and so I ended up just taking my brother to the park, and would go back, and it was kind of sad because we had these high hopes that we did this wonderful thing for my mom, and she didn't really care because she was too busy in the other room. There was another time, it was Easter, and I don't know how old most kids are when they realize that that's all fake, but I still wanted my brother to believe. So we had woken up with nothing for Easter, but I had remember seeing at the grocery store that the Easter Bunny was going to the grocery store. So we scrounged up a bunch of change and money, and I took him down to the grocery store to meet the Easter Bunny so we could get an Easter basket. And I still have the picture of he and I in front of the Easter Bunny. It was like, now you look back in that bunny costume, definitely not realistic, but you know, it's at least a cherished memory anyways. Then fast forward, I'm probably 12 now, and we had to hide from the bad people, right? So we had to like write all the license plate numbers down, and now we had to hide from bad people, because at that time I didn't realize the bad people were actually DCFS trying to come and take us away. And so DCFS would come to the door and come to the sliding door, because we were on the bottom level, and they would knock on the door, and we would just have to pretend that we weren't there. We had to hide. We had to keep all the lights off. We had to be super quiet, so then that way so the bad people wouldn't take us. Then it was on my 12th birthday that my grandma drove all the way from California, or from Utah to California, to come and pick my brother and I up. And so we drove home to our new home to live with my grandma in Layton, and we ended up staying with her and living with her for a while. My mom would always have like those bats, right, where she would be with us and then she wouldn't be with us. And we didn't know how long she wouldn't be with us or how long we would be living with a family member. So we lived in a trailer park in Layton, and it was kind of nice because I had an aunt and uncle who lived like on one street, and then another aunt and uncle who lived like just on the corner, and then my great grandmother, and then my grandma, and then my dad, who I call dad, right, Stephen, he actually moved into the trailer park too. So then my brother and I got to move in with him. So we actually got to live with him, and that was wonderful. And then my mom actually came back into the picture. So this would have been like 6th grade summer, and then year of 7th grade school year, she actually ended up coming back into the picture, which, you know, was happy. She and my dad acted like they were going to get back together, you know, that life was going to be grand. And, you know, as a child, you're like, oh my God, my parents are going to be back together. That's like literally the definition of the movie Parent Trap, right? You want that to happen as a kid. And so I thought I was like living the dream. Everything was going to be great and grand, and it was going to happen. And that got shattered, you know. So by the time I was 13, she ended up it didn't end up working out. Walls are very thin, so you can hear the screaming and the yelling and the arguing and the crying, and you just knew that she wasn't happy, and you don't want your mom to not be happy, you know. You love her more than anything. You don't want her to be unhappy. So she ended up meeting someone else and then left my dad for this other guy, and that was super hard on my dad. So my dad went through like a little bout of depression, and then it was like, well, who do you go live with? Do you live with your mom, or do you live with your dad? What do you do? And then I just thought that it would be easier if I went through a very depressed state at the age of 13, especially with that going on, and not doing well in school at all, almost failing all my classes on purpose just to see if I would get a rise out of my parents. But I think they were a little too wrapped up in, you know, their own stuff, which completely understandable, right? Adulting these days is, anyways. So I attempted to slit my wrists, and my brother walked in when I was doing it. And he like, what are you doing? And then I panicked and was like, oh, I'm just getting an apple. And he's like, why are you bleeding? What's happening? Why are you bleeding? And I was like, oh, I just grabbed the knife and I accidentally cut myself. It's fine. And so then it's almost as if like that like mother gene within me was like, oh, that took over, and now I need to help take care of my little brother, right? So that was pretty scary. Then my dad ended up going through paramedic school, and he was pretty busy, and he ended up moving to Salt Lake. So my brother and I ended up moving in with my mom. And I developed some really good friendships in junior high, and Kaylee and Camille, like lifelines, definitely my like sisters in a different life for sure. And having them around and being able to go over to their house and see what a normal family functioned like, what chores were, what parents cared if you actually got like a C. I mean, one of my friends, like, you couldn't even get a B, you know what I mean? And knowing what chores were and what going and being with them, they both lived in the same neighborhood, and being able to just be a kid was absolutely amazing. So I tried to stay with them as much as I possibly could. My mom was, when she was dating this new guy, that they would use together. To what extent, I didn't know specifically, but I always, the smell of.
I'm sorry. To what extent? Can we start that line again?
Oh, sorry, motorcycle.
Started finding it around the house and try to say like, no, brush it off. Don't worry about it. It's not a big deal. It's not a big deal. And then you find, I didn't realize this at the time, but now I'm a little bit older. I kind of know what those little roses in those glasses, those little glass vials that you would buy at the gas station. I didn't realize what that was, but my mom would always let my brother and I buy them because I thought it was so cool to have those little roses out of them, not really realizing what those were actually used for. So, going forward, I'm in high school now, and I am finding out what those are used for. Right now, you're in high school and you have the peer pressure, like kids drinking, kids using, kids doing this, and that's being introduced. Hey, do you want to try this? Do you want to try that? And, I did, no, I'm not going to do what my mom does. I think she's an idiot when she uses that stuff, so why would I? And so I quickly became known as the mother of the group because I would drive, right? Or I would get us around to places. I would make sure that we were all taken care of. And my friends were, into experiencing. They had a normal life. Of course they would be more into experiencing, in a sense. And then I ended up writing and confronting my mom. I wrote a story about me finding paraphernalia around the house and me not appreciating it. And I took that to my mom because I was just like, I'm done trying to convince you to stop doing this. It would be hidden around the house, and I'd have chores and cleaning around the house, and I would find it everywhere. And I was just like, I'm done with this. Why do we have to keep doing this? And so I ended up actually getting into a few fights with my mom. And one time, I tried to get out of the car while it was moving, and she threatened like she was going to hit me. She threatened like she was going to hit me, and I shoved my face in hers and I was like, do it. I dare you, just do it. And that didn't end up happening, which was good, thanks Mom for not hitting me. But then I ended up moving out. I ended up living on my friends' couches. My friends, knowing my situation and knowing, my mom's situation, their parents let me stay on their couch or, just stay with them for a few months. And I didn't tell my mom I was doing it. I would just go home on lunch breaks and slowly pack a duffel bag and put more and more and more until the majority of my stuff was gone. And I just told my mom I was never going to go back. I was done dealing with that. So then my uncle heard my situation, and I actually ended up moving in with him for my senior year. So, which was great, because then I got a car and I got a cell phone, and was actually able to live a kind of normal life for a while. And my mom still wasn't doing good. She was still using. My brother, I always felt bad, so bad for leaving him behind. But I was 16. It's not like I could take 13-year-old with me. So, but then that left him living with my mom and her boyfriend. and he got to witness a lot more of the using, and he actually did dabble in it. When it was my senior year, and my mom and her boyfriend, they were going through it. She didn't live with him anymore because she didn't, they just fought and it was toxic. So she didn't end up living with him. And then they lived in a place, her and my brother lived in an apartment in Roy, but my mom still was using. And it had progressed from like coke and pot to meth. And she would use that, and my brother knew about it and would find it and tried to turn in the paraphernalia to the cops. And he would have been 15, 16 at that time when he's finding that type of stuff. And that kind of hurts my heart, because that's what he was going through. And we don't want to see our mom sick. We don't want her to see her go through these things. And we know when our mom is present, she's a beautiful mom. She kicks our asses when we're doing something wrong. She gives us responsibilities and provides that structure that children need. But when she's not present, she's not herself, right? Or she's just absent. So my mom, in order for her boyfriend to hurt her, he got to her through me. And I will never forget it because it was almost so heartbreaking because he couldn't find where my mom was. And I got a phone call from him, and I'm walking through the hallway, and it's right before the bell, before the bell rings, so that the common area isn't swarmed with kids. And he calls me, and he's telling me how my mom is using her body to buy drugs, what drugs my mom is doing, what sexual acts my mom is doing to pay for these drugs, and stuff that a child shouldn't hear about her mom. And then telling me that my mom is gone. My mom stole my car one time from school, and it's you walk out to find your car and you don't have a vehicle anymore to drive to and from places. And so then he proceeds to tell me that she's actually fallen off the deep end, and these are all the things that she's doing, and she now has a girlfriend, and did you know that she's doing this? And it's completely overwhelming to hear that. I just broke down in front of the whole, not the whole school, but in front of the school, and just was sobbing uncontrollably. My friends had to pick me up and carry me basically to the counselor's office. And then at that point, it was public knowledge in the school that is my childhood. That was my upbringing. I was friends with people who lived in the more uppity part of Layton, and so they didn't even knew I lived in a trailer park. I did not portray that at all. They did not realize that I was someone who even had that type of mother to struggle with those types of things, because I didn't want people to know about that version of my mom or that version of my life, because why, it's ugly, it's hurtful, it's dark, it's painful. And what I'm realizing now as an adult is I'm very good at not communicating my emotions and feelings these days, and wearing that mask to portray a certain type of person to society, to make it so I don't burden anyone in any way with anything other than happiness and joy, because it's not their problem, Something my mom is trying to help me work through with today. So that being said, fast forward, I meet my future husband, and we're dating, and we get pregnant, and we get married. And I was pregnant, and I didn't want, and I told my mom, she knew that I was pregnant with my first child, but she was using, and she came to my wedding. And my mom is 5'8", and has always been very thin. She's gorgeous, but she looked like a skeleton. She was so emaciated. She just didn't look healthy. And my friend Sasha at the time, bless her heart, she was dealing with some medical issues that day, but she was still there and she still showed up for me, and she helped me put my dress on and she helped me put my shoes on. Like, Sasha was there for me. And then my mom kept trying to like be there, even though I didn't want her to be, because I knew, looking at her, it's like, you're using, you know? Did you use today? Like, why are you here? I don't want you here. And that's horrible for me to not want my mom at my wedding, you know? And she was really rude to Sasha because she didn't understand what Sasha was actually going through. And Sasha was like in so much pain. And anyways, so that was something else. And then I ended up, you know, having my little boy, Cohen. But my mom, again, was still using and still with that lady. And she tried to force her way into the delivery room. And at that time, all I wanted was my dad and my mom, Robin. That is the only people that I wanted in the delivery room. My mom, Robin, she's amazing. She's an ER nurse. She's just amazing. And so, like, as far as anyone who I wanted at my side, I just wanted my husband and I wanted my mom right there. But my mom, Robin, not my mom, Tracy. My mother-in-law apparently was trying to run interference the entire time that I was in the delivery room about to have my boy. She was trying to run interference. She was chasing my mom basically around like the floor and trying to block her from coming into the room. And my mom sneaked her way in behind a nurse, like was throwing a fit out in the hall, unbeknownst to myself and my husband that was actually going on. And she sneaked her way in. Looking back on the experience, God bless my mother-in-law for putting up with that and my family for doing that. But it was a blessing to have her be in there and be present for Cohen's delivery. She got some pictures, some that were a little bit too questionable for me to like actually put anywhere, like cut a little part of it out. But she got some really awesome pictures, and it was great for her to be there for her first grandchild. Her still using, I still didn't want her around a lot. She came over to hold him when he was an infant, and I told her that she was not allowed to touch him. And she didn't understand why, and I said that I read that whatever you put into your body secretes through your pores, and you can sweat it out, and it could be on your arms, it could be on your hands. And because I didn't trust what she actually put in her body, I did not trust her to hold her grandson. So she did not get to hold him. I don't think she ever really got to hold him until he was like almost a year, if not older. Then my mom, you know, she was good for a while, and then she started getting picked up on charges. Like, you know, all of a sudden she's forgery, all of a sudden she's drug charge, all of a sudden it's like these things are happening, and I'm like, what? Who is this woman, right? Like, what is actually happening? And talking to my brother, and there was an instance, like if we rewind a little bit, I did go away to college for a year, and my brother called me, and I could hear my mom banging on the door, and he's like, I need you to come home. My brother's like pleading with me and sobbing and telling me that I was more of a mom to him than our mom ever was, and that was completely heartbreaking. I'm a state away, and you could hear my mom just pounding on the door. Let me in, let me have my son, let me in that room. And he's just sobbing, and so that was heart-wrenching. And so to know now what he actually went through, I feel like he almost went through it way worse than I had to, because she was using a lot more heavy, you know, when he was the age when I decided to bounce. So he was still living with her up to like 18, 19, I think, and then he moved out. And then my mom's getting into all this trouble, and she's getting picked up, and she's gone to jail, and then she's gone to like done these different treatment programs, but they're not working. And so my husband and I took her in and allowed her to live with us for a while. Well, then we went away to Colorado on vacation, and she got the cops called to our house. And we got a call from the neighbors saying that the cops are at the house, and then trying to get a hold of my mom to figure out why the cops are at the house. And all of this just sheer chaos. And then we get home from the trip, and the house is pretty well picked up, but you know, going through and cleaning the house, I found a little baggie of white residue, and then I found a crack pipe, and then I'm like, my child lives in this house, and this was just hidden behind the TV. Who's to say that he can't reach his little hand back there? Kids put everything in their mouth. Everything in their mouth. I was so upset. My husband was working out of town, and he's like, don't say anything to her until I get home. Let me be there with you. And at that point, I was just like, okay, I don't know what to do. I don't know how to handle this. And so he ended up getting home, or he didn't end up getting home, she got home. And then she could tell that I was upset. And my mom, if she knows that something is wrong, she's gonna be like, what's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong? You know, like a broken record until you finally break and crack. And so finally I was just like, this is what I found. And I was in the kind of like an oversized chair, and my little boy, because she went to hold him, and I was like, no, you know, and I put him behind me, and I was sitting at the edge of the chair, and I was just screaming and yelling at my mom, just screaming. And Cohen's crying because he knows how upset I am, and obviously yelling and screaming, I'm upsetting my own child. But I was so angry, cartoon status angry. And I mean cartoon status because, like, looking at the shirt I was wearing, like, you could see where the red started and, like, my white skin started. Like, I was that just fuming red, screaming at her, swearing at her, telling her how much I hated her, just laying into her for the audacity that she would even treat me and my husband and my child this way. Like, just straight up mama bear. Like, I can't have you in my life anymore. You cannot be in my life anymore. And she left, and I continued to try to still talk to her a little bit. I remember writing her a letter at one point in time saying, you know, that we have a problem, and that we together as a family need to fix this problem because we cannot continue to live like this. And she called me up and was like, how dare you write this type of letter to me? I am a good mother. I have always been there for you. You are like a piece of shit, like horrible, horrible, horrible. I just basically told her that I couldn't talk to her anymore because I just didn't want that in my life. I didn't want that around my kids. So she ended up getting picked up so many times that they took her to jail, and she wasn't able to be released anymore. She wasn't able to be released on like a drug program or anything like that. And my aunt asked me to write a letter to the judge that was going to sentence her. And that was going to kind of be the determining factor on whether or not she could be out or she could go to prison. So I wrote a letter to the judge asking him to take her to prison. I told him in my letter, and I still have the letter actually, that if he didn't take her, that I was going to hear from them, from the authorities, one way or another. And that was going to be that they actually picked her up and took her to prison, or that she was dead because she had overdosed or made some poor decisions. She got her sentence. She was sentenced to prison. And I was not going to go see her at all. I didn't want to go see her. And my aunt and my grandma and my brother and I ended up going and seeing her. And I am a few months pregnant at this time with my little girl. I did not want my mom to know. But my aunt blurted it out to her and told her, that I was pregnant. And I was so angry that news was shared without my permission. But I mean, looking back on it, I guess it was a good thing that she got to at least have that. But then at the same time, how heartbreaking is that she found out that her daughter was pregnant again and didn't want that, didn't want her to know, you know. while my mom was in prison, she found out that I had my baby girl. She wrote in her journal, this is like one of my favorite parts, and I don't know if she told this when she shared her story, but she found out that I was pregnant a few days after, or not pregnant, she found out that I had my baby girl a few days after she had written in her journal on the day that I had my baby girl. She knew, which was, it's like a little godsend that she actually got to, she said that she just smelled me and felt me that day. Like she just kind of knew that I was going to have my baby girl that day. And I absolutely love when she tells that part of her story. It's one of my favorites. One thing that I didn't mention when I was younger that was probably something that I have dealt with in counseling since I've been an adult is that when I was living in California, before we moved to Temecula, when we were living in Rancho Cucamonga, I had dropped a mayonnaise jar. Mayonnaise jars used to come in glass. They didn't used to come in plastic. They used to come in glass, and I was making myself a sandwich, and I had dropped the mayonnaise glass off the counter, and the mayonnaise went everywhere. And I remember my mom coming out from the back room and storming out and seeing the mess, and her like screaming to me, "Sometimes I wish you were never born." And that particular sentence has like haunted me, because like you don't want your mom to not wish that she never had you. 'Cause that was really heartbreaking. Come to find out, that particular sentence in counseling as an adult kind of goes to my lack of feeling worthy of love, right? Because even my mom didn't want me here, so why would anyone else? So my poor husband has had to deal with me needing like all the love all the time. And we've gone to counseling numerous times because of it. But today, so my mom ended up getting out of prison. She has 12 years clean and sober, which is amazing. So proud of her. When she first got out of prison, I didn't trust her. I still wouldn't allow her around me and my kids. I would allow her to meet, I allowed her to meet Haven, but I didn't actually allow her to be alone with my kids. And so it took her a few years to actually have that relationship with me and my kids, and for me to actually trust her. And today, we have a beautiful relationship, and we go and stay the night at Grandma Tracy's house all the time, so we can actually spend time together, because she is constantly, she's healthy now. It's a long battle. It took her a long time to get to where she's at, but I am so grateful that she, has taken all of these steps and is still today healthy today. One thing that I will say though is that I don't ever regret my life. I don't regret my mom's choice to become an addict, because I love who she's become today, and I'm so proud of her, and I'm proud of who I've become today. And had she not made those choices, they would not have molded us into who we are today. So I am so grateful for recovery, and I am so grateful for my mom, so grateful. So. Advice that I would give a younger version of myself is to not hold everything inside. Know that you have family and friends and teachers and counselors, even though you might not have that relationship with them, don't hold it all inside. It leads to darkness, and it leads to bad thoughts. Talk it out, and know that just because one person in your life doesn't love you the way that you want them to, does not mean that there are not so many other people in your life who love you and adore you and care for you and will always, always be there for you. You're not alone. You're not alone.